Project report. Why do you actually need a project report? Well, you don't need a project report if you are doing a project just by yourself and it's just you and you are doing everything and it doesn't concern anybody. You don't need a project report. However, in a lot of cases, you do need to attract lenders and you do need to attract investors to come and invest with you in the project, especially if you're looking to doing a no money down deal. There's no way that you can do a no money down deal until you can establish some trust and authority with your investors or with the lender. So who is it for? Well, essentially for the lender and the investor, because the lender will look at you more favorably because you can prove to them that you are a professional. So that's why you need to understand how you can put together a project report. You also need it to establish trust and authority with your investors or whoever is going to put money with you in the deal, even your joint venture planners or joint venture partners and so on. So you gotta, it is about being very thorough. So there's no pie in the sky that you are talking. This is basically you backing yourself up and the project of and showing and proving to people that it is what you say it is. So back what you say with market research, facts and numbers. You got to read more and do your homework before you put a report together. You got to find out what the consultants are saying, any reports from consultants that support what you say. If you get a known builder or a planning firm or a good architect or a project manager or a development firm in your project report saying that X, Y, and Z would be managing the project or would be responsible for the design or would be responsible for town planning, you just added more credibility to your report. And that looks much better to an investor than somebody that they've never heard of before. So if you yourself are doing it for the first time, but you do a really good job putting this report together, I'd say 9 out of 10 times you will get your money. You will attract investors to come and invest with you in your project. So do you present yourself as being a professional? What is your track record? Is there somebody with experience looking over your development? It could be a project manager, development manager, experienced developer, or your mentor. Would be looking over. That can add a lot of credibility. So in your report, if you're putting together a report, you're compiling a report together, you should mention all these things in there. Any other investors that you have already engaged? If you've already engaged somebody else, make sure you mention that there are 2 stakeholders already who are already putting money in, and put their details in the report so that when the third one looks at it or the fourth one looks at it, they know that, there are already people putting money in there. So these are the things that will help you establish trust and authority when you are putting your project report together. Detailed research. Now, I have already covered all of this under the module 2 and module 3. So make sure you spend a lot of time in the the second and the third module. Well, you've got to spend a lot of time in all the modules. But in order to become really astute, so to speak, in doing your research and finding and making sure all the numbers stack up and making sure what you're saying is always backed by research and facts, you've got to go through the module 2 and module 3 in a lot of detail. So you should have details about location, physical characteristics, market, state of the market, supply and demand, the capital growth trend, the demographics, the product fit. Why have you chosen to develop a 3-bedroom townhouses rather than apartments on the side? So there's got to be a reasoning behind your explanation when you go and talk to investors. So that the whole idea of putting this report together is to engage other investors to come and invest with you. It's no different than running a business. This is purely business. If you want to get a loan from somebody, you got to have a good business plan. And what the project report is your business plan, showing you how everything is going to come and unfold. Why are you doing these things? and why have you chosen a certain location, why have you chosen a particular design, why have you chosen the site, what are the numbers. So gone are the days where people didn't have enough knowledge or understanding of what their land was worth, that they came in and they let you do a no money down deal and they signed an option for $1. Those days are gone, literally. So everybody now understands if they own a land, it's worth something, and what it is worth, nobody wants to just give it away. But if you put something like this together, you've actually set yourself apart. And this report could even go to a JV with the landowner. So especially if you are looking to do no money down deals, if you are looking to attract money from other investors so you can do bigger, larger projects, you got to be able to put together a project report. And I'll share a template with you shortly. Detailed due diligence. Details about land, zoning, parking, traffic flows, setbacks, easements, site access and egress, covenants. All these details have to be part of the project report. A very detailed financial feasibility. What are the assumptions in the financial feasibility? Especially when you're doing a financial feasibility at the start of the project, there are a lot of unknowns there. And there are a lot of things where you will get quotes for and then put them in the financial report, in your financial feasibility, and there will be some things where you will make assumptions on. And those assumptions have to be listed in your project report so that you can tell people that these numbers are based on the assumptions that you have made. So tomorrow they can turn around and say, oh, your numbers don't stack up because you said X amount and you said Y amount. But you have to say X amount based on your assumptions. So make sure that you've got your assumptions and the quotes that you've received, so you've used the same numbers in there. Now, another thing you can use the project report wise to look professional, but the presentation of the report has to look professional as well. The most important thing, even after you put the report together, that you will face will be objections and the frequently asked questions. Now this is a massive list, and when you put this report together, although you can choose to pick up some questions and answer them in the report, but there will be inevitably be more questions that will arise. In my experience, when I did my no money down deal and all the deals that I have put together so far, I have come across a list of all these questions. Now that's a massive list, but anyway, we'll go through them so that you understand and you are prepared and you've tried to answer these questions in the report. So when they have a question, that you already have an answer there. So that not only makes you look professional, it also tells them that you've done your homework. You are not a schmuck doing this for the first time. So these are the things that you got to remember. So they will ask you, what sort of structure are you using? How much is each unit? How did you decide the value of each unit? And you can ask your accountant about these questions. Each unit is basically, if it's a unit trust or if it's a company, it's going to be each share. It depends upon the land you are purchasing. It depends upon the equity that's in the land. It depends upon the value that's already been added to the land. And depending upon that, all these things, you'll come up with answers to this. If you've got a mentor and you're doing a project like this, you should have no issue, because they will be able to help you out with all of these questions. If something goes wrong, how do I get my money back? What will my money be used for? What can go wrong? What if we don't get permit? What happens then? What if we get objections? I think it's risky. So you've got to have some prepared and pre-rehearsed answers for all of these questions, to be able to answer those objections correctly. Can I hold units in my super fund? Inevitably, the older people are, the more questions you'll ask, the more times you will hear this question. And the answer, I can't give you that answer because I don't know what development it is, what kind of structure it is. So the best person to answer that question would be your accountant and your finance broker. And the reason I say the finance broker, why? Because depending upon the kind of development you are doing, the kind of structure you have used, a lot of lenders do not like if you've got units or shares being held by a super a self-managed super fund. So ask your accountant, ask your finance broker if they can arrange finance if someone is holding units or shares in their self-managed super fund. So ask them these questions. Will I get taxed? How much will they get taxed? Now, it's not up to you to calculate their taxation, or do you have to tell them to go and ask their accountant? Do I have to guarantee the loan? Do I want to guarantee the loan? What happens if they say I don't want to guarantee the loan? I'm sorry. How does a commercial loan work? So these are the things that I've already covered in my finance section, where you can find out how does a commercial loan work. They could ask you, what if we don't get pre-sales? How is my money safe? You don't have to have money. You don't have any money in the deal. Now that's a classic question that every no money down deal person, whoever's putting the no money down deal together, will always ask. They will raise the question that you don't have any skin in the game, and that actually does not give them a lot of confidence. However, when you're putting a no money down deal, there are other ways to do it, and I cover that in the no money down deal module. How much money are you putting in? In what circumstances would the trustee of the fund seek to issue further units in the trust? That could be one of the questions. That is, when and why would the unit holders be expected to contribute further funds? So there are questions like these. Who are the directors? Why are you the director? Why can't they be the director? They might say they don't want to be the director. How often are unit holder meetings held? Or how often project meetings are held? How do you communicate with stakeholders? How often do you communicate with stakeholders? Do you do what? To what extent? It's actually, I'm so sorry. That should be. To what extent are stakeholders able to contribute to the decisions of the development team? If there is a development team, can they become part of the decision-making process? Who does what? I want to be actively involved. Who signs the checks? So there could be questions like these that you will have to answer, and be prepared to answer. Be prepared to have answers to all these questions.